Hi, my name is Ruby, and in this video diary I will be reflecting on domestic and family violence in pregnancy and the role of the midwife within this space. This topic has had a significant impact on me throughout the semester, as it has challenged many of my previous assumptions about what domestic and family violence can look like within maternity care. Before exploring this topic in depth, I primarily associated DFV with physical abuse. However, through engaging with the literature and reflecting on my clinical experiences, I've come to understand that it is often far more hidden and multifaceted. Domestic and family violence is recognised as a pattern of coercive control that extends beyond physical abuse. It can include emotional and psychological abuse, financial control, reproductive coercion, isolation, intimidation, surveillance, and threats involving children. What has particularly stayed with me is the understanding that pregnancy, while often viewed as a joyful and protective time, can actually increase vulnerability for many women. Reflecting on this topic has made me recognise how important the role of the midwife is in creating emotional safety, building trust, and supporting women without judgment. It has also made me reflect on the kind of midwife I want to become, someone who advocates compassionately and supports women through complex situations without making them feel blamed or powerless. In this video diary, I will be exploring my own clinical observations as well as the complexities surrounding disclosure and DCJ involvement, and how continuity of midwifery care can create a safe space where women feel heard, respected, and empowered. In Australia, DFV remains a major public health issue, with significant rates of physical and sexual violence reported among women. However, DFV is not often disclosed directly. Instead, it often emerges through subtle indicators, inconsistencies in narratives, or emotional cues that require sensitive, skilled, and ongoing engagement from midwives. One thing that particularly stood out to me in the literature was the idea that many women are not asked about violence in ways that feel emotionally safe. Subcutter and colleagues stated that we don't see because we don't ask, highlighting how silence within healthcare can unintentionally reinforce isolation and invisibility. This challenged me to reflect on the responsibility midwives have not only to ask routine DFV questions, but to ask them with genuine compassion, relational trust, and cultural safety. The learning modules also prompted me to think beyond disclosure itself and consider what happens next. As midwives, our role does not end at identification. It extends into ensuring safe and appropriate referral pathways for both the woman and her baby. Through my placement experience, this became particularly significant as I observed how many women hold complex and often fearful perceptions of the Department of Communities and Justice, DCJ, particularly in relation to concerns about child protection involvement and potential custody outcomes when DFV is disclosed. Whilst working within the antenatal clinic at my hospital, I was involved in the care of a woman whose medical record documented a complex history of domestic and family violence. Her notes indicated that an apprehended violence order, an AVO, had been in place against the father of her unborn baby for the safety of herself and her 3-year-old daughter. The documentation also stated that she had been staying in a hotel and had chosen not to disclose her location. It further recorded that she had attended emergency care following police involvement and a fall, and had subsequently been involved with the Department of Communities and Justice, DCJ, and social work services. During her antenatal appointment, the woman appeared cheery, stating that everything was fine and that she had since resumed the relationship with the baby's father. She explained that the AVO had been revised so that he could be in her vicinity as long as he had not consumed alcohol within a 12-hour period, as alcohol was identified as a trigger for previous violence. When the midwife I was working with politely inquired about prior events involving police and hospital presentations, the woman stated that she did not recall these events occurring, which highlighted obvious discrepancies between her lived narrative and the documented clinical record. This situation prompted deep reflection for me about the complexity of disclosure in DFE contexts. Rather than viewing these inconsistencies as contradictions, I began to understand them as potentially reflective of a mistrust in the system. It reinforced that disclosure is rarely linear and is often shaped by the broader social and institutional consequences women may anticipate. What was particularly significant in this situation was the role of the midwife in providing continuity of care. The midwife I was working with offered ongoing care which the woman accepted. This created an opportunity for a more consistent relational approach, where trust can be developed over time rather than demanded in a single encounter. It highlighted for me that safety is not created through screening alone, but through sustained therapeutic relationships. It was also clear the importance of accurate documentation and multidisciplinary communication. Updates were appropriately recorded to ensure continuity across the care team, including social work and DCJ involvement. This demonstrated the importance of balancing woman-centred care with safeguarding responsibilities, particularly in complex clinical situations where risk is dynamic and multifaceted. This experience challenged me to reflect on the role of child protection systems in shaping women's engagement with maternity care. It became evident that fear of judgment, surveillance, or child removal can significantly influence what women feel safe to disclose. This reinforced the importance of trauma-informed practice, where behaviours are understood within context rather than interpreted as non-compliance or resistance. My experience working with women in unfortunate situations of current or previous DFE, such as the woman I mentioned earlier, also allowed me to reflect on the ethical tension of balancing woman-centred care with mandatory reporting responsibilities and child safety concerns. As a student midwife, I found this emotionally complex because I could see how systems designed to protect children may simultaneously create barriers to trust for vulnerable women. This challenged me to think critically about what trauma-informed care truly means in practice. I learnt that woman-centred care is not only about clinical management, but about preserving dignity, autonomy, and emotional safety, even within highly complex situations. The Australian Maternity Care Framework emphasises that women should feel respected, informed, and actively involved in their care. Through this reflection, I realised that midwives cannot rescue women from violence. However, we can reduce harm by listening without judgment, providing education around available supports, and recognising that leaving violent relationships is complicated and often dangerous and deeply influenced by social circumstances. I also became more aware of my own assumptions. I realised that I had previously underestimated how difficult disclosure can be when women fear consequences such as shame, financial instability, or child removal. This topic has really shaped how I see myself as a future midwife, both professionally and personally. It has reinforced that midwifery is not only about clinical care or physical assessment, but about being present with women during some of the most complex and vulnerable moments of their lives. Moving forward, I aim to continue developing my skills in trauma-informed communication, culturally safe practice, and continuity of care. This experience has helped me understand that continuity is more than a model of care. It is a relational process that builds trust over time. For women who feel fearful, uncertain, or conflicted about disclosure, consistent midwifery presence can provide stability and a non-judgmental space where they are able to share at their own pace. Ultimately, I believe midwives can act as a compassionate bridge between important healthcare services, such as DCJ, and women navigating highly complex circumstances. Through woman-centred care, midwives have the potential to reduce isolation, strengthen trust, and support women to access help when the timing is right. Thank you for listening.